St Patrick's Community Support Centre acknowledges the traditional owners of the Binjarab Wajuk Nala Kala Buja Buja on which we operate, and recognises their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. The story of St Patrick's Community Support Centre is bigger than just one man or an organisation. It's a story about the community of Walyalup Fremantle, and how time and again they have come together in support of one another, often when no one else would. Thousands of people have been drawn to Fremantle since the 1800s, including migrants and itinerant workers seeking a new life, a change of fortune and a safe place to raise their families. As the centre of West Australia's commerce and trade, the city brought great wealth and prosperity to many. But the rise and fall of industries, the Great Depression, war and the boom and bust cycle of our economy led to a mass exodus of businesses, followed by mass unemployment. And as some people rode the wave of wealth further inland, many more found themselves left behind. When Brother Ignatius Hannock arrived in the early 1970s, homelessness was a familiar sight in Fremantle. And on a cold, wet Sunday morning, so the story goes, it arrived at the door of the presbytery of St Patrick's Basilica in the form of a frail and hungry man. And Brother Hannock refused to turn away. A member of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, Brother Hannock took up the mission of his order to serve people experiencing homelessness in Fremantle, and was soon, with the support of volunteers and local businesses, providing up to 100 meals a night. A few months later, he took over a derelict school building at the back of the Basilica, which would later become St Patrick's Care Centre.
It was a community hub in itself for the parish, is what it was meant to be. So it was a homely and a welcoming sort of place. But once it was filled with the clients, it just took on a whole new dimension of a secure place, something where they trusted. The staff were fantastic, mostly volunteers working in that capacity. But it was real coalface. It was simple, it was genuine, it offered basic needs to the clients, but it also gave them a sense of support and security and recognition, and I think it had that really homely feeling about it.
But Brother Hannock also understood that loneliness could be as harmful as hunger. In 1980, he applied for a Lotteries Commission grant to upgrade the old schoolhouse, adding an area for showers, a recreational centre and library. As demand for St Pat's services grew, so did its reputation and responsibilities. In 1983, it employed its first staff member, social worker Jessie Healy, and in 1985, St Pat's established its first accommodation service, funded by the Commonwealth Government.
About the same time, perhaps the most heinous, prison system in the Southern Hemisphere was shutting down on the eastern border of the town, and on the western border you've got a university which is all about hope and the future establishing itself, and so Fremantle was in a position to really benefit from that.
But as parts of Fremantle thrived, others did not, and the arrival of the America's Cup only exacerbated that growing divide.
There seemed to be more overt need evident in Fremantle during that 80s through to the 90s.
The 1990 housing slump triggered Australia's last recession, Paul Keating's famous recession.
This is a recession that Australia had to have.
The more affluent the community got in general, the more there seemed to be problems.
But of course people have been in a recessed condition. They've been suffering.
The gap between the haves and the have-nots has grown dramatically. You have some incredibly rich people who don't want to share it, and that ethos that surrounds them rubs off on others as well. So it's all been, I think, a product of the growth in wealth in the West Australian community, substantially derived from the various mining areas.
In response to this growing demand, St Pat's took on more properties in the 1980s and 1990s, with a focus on housing single men experiencing drug and alcohol dependency.
Fremantle City Council had a number of properties that they were providing for homeless people, and they were thinking, well, should we be in this operation? So they divested the operation of those properties to us, and they were still properties that they owned, but we took over the management of them. So we started to expand into providing the accommodation side of things as well.
For a lot of the clients that we see coming through, they feel very judged when they go into mainstream clinics. They can't keep to appointments because it's very difficult for them to know what time of day it is and when to be everywhere. They get put off by the barriers of paperwork and lots of forms that they have to fill in, and of course money is a huge barrier. So to offer a service that is warm, that's friendly, that is a safe space for people to come along, that they can engage with a range of practitioners free of charge, and very often that if they feel anxious to attend a service, it can be the clinic coordinators that can actually go along and hold their hands, because quite frankly I'm not sure that many of our clients would be able to access the type of healthcare that they really need if we weren't here.
The new millennium heralded the end of an era at St Patrick's Care Centre. To better meet the changing needs of the community, the organisation incorporated into St Patrick's Community Support Centre in 2001. Jessie Healy passed the reins to Steve McDermott, and St Pat's first chair, Tony McAlinden, stepped down to be replaced by Dr Pat Colgan. And on May the 14th, 2005, Brother Hannock passed away peacefully in his sleep. He was 76.
Absolute humility, generosity, total lack of judgment of others, total acceptance of everyone at face value, and that's what I saw, and I know that's what everyone else saw, and I think if we can reflect those values today, we're doing really, really well.
As St Pat's changed, so too did the needs of the organisation. It had to find new ways to raise funds and connect with an increasingly disengaged community. And so it turned to the most powerful force of all, music.
I see my light come shining from the west unto the east. Any day now, any way now, I shall be released. Any day now, any way now, I shall be
The choir meets at St Pat's Day Centre, which has long been considered the heart of St Pat's. In 2009, it moved to its current location at 12 Queen Victoria Street, where it offers access to everything from showers to referrals, allied health services, financial and legal counselling, and much more. The new building allows Stella Lindsay and her team of kitchen volunteers the space to comfortably prepare around 150 fresh-cooked meals a day, while above the day centre sits Ignatius House. The 22-room accommodation facility is just one of the properties in St Pat's portfolio, which has grown and diversified to now provide safe homes for around 350 men, women and young people, including couples and families. The day centre also provides a space for St Pat's to address an often overlooked problem among people experiencing homelessness: dental health care.
I always tell the story, I think it brings it home, of these two guys that would come in for meals, and one would have his meal first and then the other. Do you know the reason why? Because they were sharing a pair of dentures. We can't even imagine it, can we? You know, the lack of dignity, the humiliation. Where do you go to from there as a person? And then they say you've got to go and pull your socks up and, you know, why can't you get a job, you know? When you're living like that, where to from here? That's what people forget. You know? That's the human stories we've got to hear. And we ended up building this game changer, this oral health clinic, which I still get stunned every time I go in there, this sparkly white place, that, you know, with equipment beyond what my own dentist would dream of, to be honest with you, you know. And we've helped so many people there, so many hundreds of people.
St Pat's outreach teams have been supporting people experiencing homelessness since the 1980s. But in 2010, it was formalised with the Street to Home program.
People say being homeless is a choice. It's actually not. In 12 years of working with homeless people, there's very few that choose to stay on the street. They may choose to fly under the radar, but that doesn't mean that they enjoy being on the street. And when you're on the street, you know, one of the things that happens a lot is that people don't want to see it. You know, and they will walk past, you know, hiding, you know, like, so they don't have to make eye contact because it's uncomfortable for them. But that's a person. How hard is it to smile and say hello? You know, how hard is it if you walk past that person, you know, every day? How hard is it to say, hey, what's your name? Nice to meet you. And then remember it.
Sorry, mate, we've got to let you go.
Over the years, several of our team have undergone a journey from client to staff member, like Jaron Green, who brings with him a wealth of lived experience.
A lot of these people have been basically abandoned or shunned by society and like detached from it, and they've either never been shown or are dealing with like generations of trauma. They literally haven't had sustained like living in the first place. Like, there's so many facets and so many unique situations of how to get someone on their feet and then possibly employed and living like most people take for granted, which is just the normal way. Like, you don't realise how many roadblocks that they've had along their journey.
When our clients come to us, a lot of the time they have no hope. They don't know what to do. And if you don't have hope in a program and the organisation, then how can you instill that in other people? You know, and sometimes you have to hold that hope for those people until they can, you know, get their own, until they can see that things are possible. It's not always going to be like this. It doesn't always have to be like this.
The COVID-19 pandemic highlighted the deep cracks of inequality which run through our society.
People pushed over the edge by Perth's annual inflation rate, still the fastest growing in the country at 7.4%.
Cost of living pressures and a lack of affordable housing pushed many families to the brink.
We never closed and we never stopped delivering services. And not only that, but we increased our response. And we did it in a way that was strategic and long-term meaningful. You know, I came with this bloody crazy idea, you know, that we had restaurants shutting down who were our supporters in the Fremantle community, and then we had this whole other community, people who rely on us in the day centre who had to stay away, that we had to feed. And why don't we connect the two together, you know, and feed tens of thousands of meals we distributed. People's jobs were saved because of it, you know. There were so many people involved in making that happen. People really cared for each other. People who stopped drinking because they were getting 3 square meals a day. How about that? It gave me new hope for, you know, for humanity. It really did see how it came together so quickly.
As St Pat's celebrates 50 years of supporting our community, we are also busier than we've ever been. To ensure we can meet our mission to end chronic homelessness, we are transforming our home in Fremantle and opening a new door to end the revolving door of homelessness. The St Pat's redevelopment project will see the day centre move to St Pat's warehouse on Beach Street and its 22 short stay rooms transformed into 28 apartments for people exiting homelessness. But however far St Pat's has come, or what the future has in store,
First priority for Australia's future, for our healing purposes. This should be the first priority for Australia.
Our doors will always be open to provide a safe, loving home to the people who need it most. In the words of Brother Hannock, the little things are most worthwhile. A quiet word, a look, a smile, a listening ear that's quick to share another's thoughts, another's care. Though sometimes they may seem quite small, these little things mean most of all.